So, listen to this. Back in 2018, just hours after Sadio Mané had scored the winner in a 2-1 match, a video appeared online that left the world stunned. It showed him, one of the brightest stars in world football, quietly cleaning the toilets of his local mosque. Social media exploded. Some praised his humility. Others found it almost unthinkable that a man Messi himself would soon call the best on the planet was doing janitorial work. But when the cameras turned to Mané for a response, he simply shrugged. "I asked them not to post that video," he said. To him, this wasn't extraordinary. It wasn't an act of charity. It was simply his life. Growing up, his father had been the spiritual leader of their mosque. Service and humility were part of his DNA, but his father's presence was cut short when Mané was only 7. He was preparing to go play football when his cousin delivered the news. "Sadio, your father passed away." At first, he thought it was a cruel joke. His father had been sick before. Traditional medicine always seemed to calm him down. This time, there was no recovery. There was no hospital in their village of Bambali. No chance to save his life. That moment planted a seed in Mané's heart. He would not only change his life, but the life of his entire community. And he knew the only path he could take was football. There was only one problem. Bambali had no real football pitches, only a dirt field. And with his father gone, responsibility for him shifted to his uncle, who became head of the mosque. To him, football was nothing but a dangerous distraction. Every year, he forced Sadio to spend more hours working at the mosque until, one day, he banned him outright from playing. At 15, Mané made a decision that would change everything. He vanished. As a childhood friend later explained, he fled Bambali. He fled in secret, without informing anyone. Walked a long way, then took the bus to Dakar. Dakar was football's promised land in Senegal, where academies connected to Europe could pluck out talent. Mané dreamed of playing on the streets until someone noticed him. But his family eventually tracked him down and dragged him home. Still, he couldn't be stopped. 7 months later, he returned, this time with a plan. He entered trials where 300 youngsters stood in line. When he stepped forward, people laughed. He didn't look like a footballer. His boots were shredded and wired together. His clothes were rags. Even the scouts looked confused. What they didn't realize was that they were witnessing the birth of the greatest Senegalese player of all time. After 3 years at Generation Foot, FC Metz, their European partner, brought him to France. Within 4 months, he was playing first-team football. He had hidden a serious groin injury, refusing to complain, refusing to miss his chance. Metz were relegated that season, but he had already caught eyes worldwide. He was called up to the Olympics, where Senegal shocked the world, holding Britain's Ryan Giggs-led squad to a draw, eliminating Uruguay and forcing Cavani and Suarez out of the tournament. By then, Ralph Rangnick and Gerard Houllier were convinced. This rough diamond had to go to RB Salzburg. It was bittersweet. Metz had just begun to feel like home, and Mané wept when they sold him. But in Salzburg, he exploded. On his debut season, he tore through Austria, scoring hat tricks, winning the cup, and humiliating Ajax in Europe. Then came the moment that defined him, a friendly against Bayern Munich. Salzburg were supposed to be fodder. Instead, Mané destroyed Guardiola's champions, scoring, winning a penalty, and assisting in a shocking 3-0 victory. Scouts swarmed, Klopp called, but ultimately passed after being thrown off by Mané's casual baseball cap at their meeting. Still, the damage was done. Mané had announced himself to the world. When Southampton came calling, Mané forced the move. In England, he was inconsistent at first, but then came history. The fastest hat trick in Premier League history, 3 goals in 2 minutes and 56 seconds. From that moment, he promised himself he would never again allow mistakes to define him. And soon, he delivered a performance against Klopp's Liverpool that sealed his fate, scoring twice in a comeback and forcing the German to rethink everything. 2 years after passing on him, Klopp spent $34 million to make him Liverpool's record African signing. Fans doubted him. Klopp would later call that doubt the biggest mistake of his career. Mané's Liverpool story began with fire. On his debut, he scored a goal of the season contender against Arsenal. He was immediately crowned Player of the Year, even after missing games with injury. More importantly, his presence meant Champions League football returned to Anfield. Then, as Salah, Van Dijk, and Robertson arrived, Liverpool became a machine. Mané adapted selflessly, shifting to the left to accommodate Salah. He led Senegal to their first World Cup since El Hadji Diouf. And in the Champions League, he lit up Europe, scoring against Porto, City, Roma, and in the final against Real Madrid. Liverpool fell short, but the statement was made. Sadio Mané was elite. While other stars flaunted cars and watches, Mané returned to Bambali with millions in hand. He built schools, homes, a hospital, internet, and provided a salary to families. He vowed no child would lose a parent like he had, simply because there was no hospital. On the pitch, he was relentless. He won the Golden Boot, shared with Salah and Aubameyang, while never demanding penalties for himself. He scored goals against Bayern, against Porto, and in yet another Champions League final, winning a penalty within 24 seconds, then handing it to Salah. He refused to hog the spotlight, and still ended that season ranked 4th in the Ballon d'Or, with Lionel Messi himself voting him number 1. Even as Salah twice beat him to African Player of the Year, Mané kept climbing. His humility never wavered. When asked why he didn't live lavishly, he said, "Why would I want 10 Ferraris, 20 watches with diamonds, 2 airplanes? I've been hungry. I worked the fields. I played barefoot. I'd much prefer to share with my people all that life has given me." And then came the crowning glory. The African Cup of Nations final, Senegal versus Egypt. Mané versus Salah. After 120 minutes, it came down to penalties. Salah waited for the 5th. But Mané stepped up earlier, rifling in the winning shot and flooding Senegal's streets with joy. For the first time in history, Senegal were African champions. Weeks later, in the World Cup qualifiers, he did it again, burying another decisive penalty against Egypt to seal Senegal's ticket to the World Cup and injuries. Setbacks, missed finals, none of it could erase what he had done. By 2022, he had lifted every major club trophy, won African Player of the Year twice, and risen to 2nd in the Ballon d'Or. From a barefoot boy fleeing his village